shorten this a bit. So, I'm Charity. I am a Journey of Hope member. I'm the Rogue member who's wearing the Ella Foundation t-shirt. And before I get started, I want to dedicate this speech, which I wrote this morning, to Matt Puckett, who was murdered by the state of Mississippi on March 20th, 2012, and to Eve, who reported to jail tonight, as we all know, to serve a 60-day sentence, essentially for exercising her right to free speech, here on the steps of the Supreme Court on January 17th, 2012. I spent 3 days with Matt's family before coming to D.C. Mary, Matt's mother, wanted to attend the vigil, but she could not because her husband was just laid off from his job. So she asked me to share Matt's final wish of her with you. Make them care, Mama. Make them care. I stand here for Matt and for Mary, doing my best to make all of you care. I spent hours locked in a cell with Eve in January. She's my cellie now. And like many here, heard her say more than once, I will not be silenced. So with Eve's words ringing in my ear, I stand here to speak the truth to you about murder. With all that I have left, my loud and my grating voice. My name is Charity Lee, as I said, and I am the founder and executive director of the Ella Foundation. I am 38 years old. My entire life has been defined, consumed, and more than once almost destroyed by murder after murder after murder. If there were a PhD of trauma, I should have earned my honorary degree by now. I have lost no one to the death penalty yet, but I have lost everyone I love to murder in one way or another. And that is all the death penalty is, murder. So I'm going to tell you the hell that my life has been because of murder. And afterwards, I dare each and every one of you to look me in the eye and tell me that any justice that involves more murder is indeed just. I am, through no choice of my own, an expert on what murder does to a person's soul, their heart, and their life. 32 years ago, my mother, the love of my 6-year-old life, paid a man to kill my father, was charged with murder 1, was arrested, was briefly incarcerated, was tried, and was eventually found not guilty, even though she is not. At least not according to the research I've done and what I know about my mother after growing up with the nuclear fallout of her decision. My mother came home after being declared innocent or getting away with murder, however you want to look at it, and was rarely ever a good mother again. She wasn't the greatest to begin with. I alternated between loving her and hating her, or hating how I felt when I was around her, because I felt she hated me, living proof of the life that she had taken. By the age of 17, I was an honor student. I had skipped the 10th grade. I played varsity soccer, and I was a heroin addict. Whatever it took to get my mother's attention, I did, in vain. By 18, I was sober, but not before coming within inches of my life many, many times, and not without having a huge blowout with my mother, demanding to be taken to treatment before I died. She finally relented, took me to treatment, and life went on, in spite of the pain I carried around with me. I finally got my act together. At the age of 19, I gave birth to and fell fiercely, madly in love with an angel in newborn skin, my son Paris. At 28, I did what I believed was never possible and fell fiercely, madly in love all over again when I gave birth to my daughter Ella who had one of the kindest souls I have yet to hold in my arms. At 33, murder snatched everyone I loved away from me again. On February 4th, 2007, Paris, the 13-year-old boy who had once saved my life and taught me everything about love that my mother did not, sexually assaulted and murdered his sister, Ella. Later, I found out he planned to kill me too that night, but decided not to because, quote, "I would suffer longer if you had to live without both of your children, Mama." I cannot even begin to describe in the short time I have up here the surreal nightmare that my life has been since looking up to see the police knock on the door at work that night. Let it suffice to say, it has been hell. I'll leave you a moment to try to imagine that hell. Then ask you to multiply that pain you just imagined by infinity, and that will give you, maybe, a mustard seed size idea of the hell I carry inside me. It is truly a miracle of love that I am able to stand here right now and rehash the ramifications of murder with you today. Paris is almost 19. He is old enough to be formally diagnosed the sexual sadist and psychopath that he is. According to one of the doctors I hired to evaluate him when he was 15, he has all of the personality characteristics needed to be another Ted Bundy. Call me crazy, but I'm scared my son may try to murder me one day. If he does, I've asked the executor of my will to make sure the court knows I am against the death penalty. The first day of the vigil, I was informed my son has been deemed, quote, dangerous and unable to be rehabilitated by the juvenile authorities in Texas. He will be transferred to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice this summer to serve out the remainder of his 40 years sentence in a hell on earth where rape, beatings, and possible murder by guards and other inmates will all be a very large part of his, my baby's, and mine daily reality. His sentence was supposed to be the loss of freedom, not the loss of his humanity, not the loss of his life, and not the loss of his sanity. Paris needs to be locked up. He is dangerous and he is not insane. Even if he was, there aren't enough mental institutions in America anyway, even for the truly insane, much less a child who killed his little sister on purpose. And we all know that death row and prisons are full of those who are truly insane, in spite of what this venerated court behind us has ruled. What Paris does not need, what none of the men and women on death row or locked up need, whether they are innocent or as guilty, cruel, and sadistic as my son, what none of their families need is to be locked in a criminal justice system where any of the above, rape, beatings, or murder, can happen to any one of them. And the public not only call it justice, but pay for, and in many cases cheer on, the same criminal acts they demonize, demoralize, and degrade my son for, and me, even though I've done nothing wrong, nothing more than love my child in spite of the pain he has brought into my life. If that is not the definition of cruel and unusual punishment of him, of me, of those of us locked in this cage of justice through no sin of our own, I do not know what is. If we are indeed winning the battle against the death penalty, which I refuse to believe until there is a constitutional amendment banning the murder of our fellow human beings, banning the murder of my son, and banning the murder of my friends, if we are indeed winning, then now is the time to start a conversation about what our next battle is going to be and how we will win that one too in the name of what is loving and right. The death penalty is just the tip of a very deadly iceberg. Now is the time to start educating ourselves further and fighting harder, not only for our loved ones' lives, but for their humanity. Yes, my son brutally murdered and gained sexual gratification from the act of murdering his sister. No, no, he does not deserve to be raped, beaten, and possibly murdered in prison by a guard, by a fellow inmate, or by the state because he did so. I am the last victim standing, and I am tired of murder. I am his mother, and I do not deserve to have homicide on my only 2 children's death certificates. My mistakes as a parent have not been that great. When I was in treatment, I was asked to write my obituary. Stop and imagine if you had to write your own. I was forced to help build my self-esteem. Many on death row write their obituaries because they want to. They want to so the world may possibly have a chance to know who they really wanted to be, how they really wanted the world to see them, warts and all. Whichever reason you find yourself writing one, it is torture through and through to believe you may never have the chance to make it where you want to be the person that you long to be. It's the only obituary I've ever written for myself, so I remember it, word for word. Charity, ageless, passed away today of natural causes, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. All that can be said, all that needs to be said of Charity is this: so passes the good woman, loved by many, loved to all. Never in my life did I dream that my obituary could, instead, one day read, "Here lies Charity, ageless, the daughter of a murdered father, the daughter of a murderess, the mother of a murdered child, the mother of a murderer, passed away today due to a broken spirit and broken heart, surrounded by no one, because her children, her family, were lost to murder and the criminal justice system. All that can be said of Charity, all that needs to be said of Charity is this: so passes the good yet troubled woman, loved by many, in love with all, in spite of the reasons she had to hate. I stand here to tell you that in spite of all the reasons I have to hate, the only thing about my life that I truly despise is the way that we as a society degrade, demoralize, destroy, and murder our children, our hope, our future, and our humanity in the name of justice. If the life I've had little choice in leading is a shining example of what murder and our current criminal justice system does to a mother, a son, and a daughter, then now is the time for state-sanctioned dehumanizing and extermination to end. Now is the time for justice to become truly just. I know I've strayed outside the narrow confines of the death penalty here. Allow me to overstep my bounds just one more time, to tell you one more thing that all this murder has finally taught me. What I hope our nation will learn one day, and what I know all of you can walk away from here and start teaching to people by the example of how you live your daily lives. Love, true, unconditional love, is the only answers to the issues we are standing here trying to call attention to the last 4 days. Love is in the air to overpower the stench of death, decay, and inhumanity that hangs over all the death houses and prisons of America, that hangs over our courts and our criminal justice system, that hangs over those who clamor for the blood of those who harm us, and those who believe they are better than those they condemn, as they stand there screaming for the blood of a fellow human being to be shed. For the heart of someone's child to be intentionally stopped after years of mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual torture in the name of justice, with no thought of forgiveness or compassion in their own lustily beating hearts. Again, I quote Matt Puckett, who also said this to his mother minutes before his murder. You have to forgive everyone, Mama. Everyone. If you want to be with me one day. And I mean everyone, Mama. Matt died knowing what I have grown to learn in this 38 years of hellish existence called my life. Matt died knowing the power of love and forgiveness. Ella has been dead longer than she ever had the chance to live. But in the short time I had to spend with her, she taught me as much about love as Paris has, only the details are different. The true gift and blessing of falling in love with Paris and Ella is that my children and the experiences I've had no choice in facing as their mother have taught me that everyone is somebody's child. That I should look at all people as I see my children. That I should love all people as I do my children, especially since my children are no longer mine to hold or to love. And that my love should be unconditional and forgiving, no matter what. I have learned, finally, that the only way to react to those who harm us is with unconditional love and forgiveness, not more murder. I have no answers for what justice is. I have no answers that will ever bring Ella back to my arms. I have no answers that will ever make sense of who Paris grew up to be. No answer I could ever find would make sense or erase all the pain that I've suffered. I just know what justice is not. If more pain is caused, if more victims are created, and more violence has been carried out, then justice has not prevailed. And if justice does not prevail, then we are all doing time and serving death sentences right now. Thank you.
Does anybody have a question for Charity? Anybody?
How did you find the journey of hope? And what are some experiences you've had working with them so far?
I found the Journey of Hope in August of last year. I had been invited to speak at an event in Abilene where my daughter was murdered. And it was the first time I'd ever spoken publicly, like in front of the media, about what had happened. And I recorded a speech that I'd written, sent it to Bill. We got hooked up, it's a long story. Sent it to Bill, and within an hour he had called me back and asked me if I wanted to be a speaker. And what was the second part?
What experiences have you had with the journey so far?
Experiences. Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? I've had amazing experiences. We were able to go to Africa and visit with they call them the condemned men and women in the Ugandan prison system. We went to Rwanda to attend a government conference. I think it was 27 dignitaries of state from various African countries. I've been to Boston. I've been to New Orleans. I've spoken to kids. I've spoken to adults. It's just been a very busy and amazing experience.
Thank
constantly evolving foundation. Right now, we're on the road for 6 months to a year and working on my books that are coming out, and I'm collecting stories of those affected by the criminal justice system, spending time with their families, getting to know them, and then interviewing their stories, whether they be on death row or have a kid in prison or lost a loved one to murder. And I'll be putting all of that on the Ella Foundation website, so those affected by the violence actually have a forum, a voice. And hopefully one day soon we'll find a place to settle down, open our first physical location, and start providing services